Good evening, all my dear friends. Great to see you again for another Saturdays. Christmas is just past. I wish you guys a happy new year, a year 2021. Hopefully this year is a better year for many of us. Chris Lee here. This is my number 13 episodes of my travelogues, and today I'm going to cover another great fort of India. It's also the last of all the five series, and this is the last series of the fort that I've visited in Rajasthan, India. If you're looking for a travel channel that can provide you with a lot of travel images, at the same time also provide you some historical and geographical background of a place so that it can help you in your planning and deciding your next destination of travel, this channel is meant for you. And please, if you like my channels, please do subscribe, share, as well as like, because my encouragement comes from all your supports. And let's move on to today's episode propers, and there is the place that I'm going to describe and share with you the images that I've traveled. They're called City Palace of Udaipur, right, of Rajasthan. As usual, if you look at the Rajasthan map of Rajasthan, it's actually located at the northwestern part of India border to Pakistan. And you look at the largest Rajasthan state map, you can see a blue arrow pointing to a city called Udaipur. This is the city that I'm going to bring you to in today's episode. And even in terms of my travel routes, Udaipur is the southernmost city that I have traveled in the state of Rajasthan. And as I did cover in the earlier episode, most of the Rajasthan states, or so-called the province, or those areas in Rajasthan are under the Thar Desert. And Udaipur is the southernmost of all the cities I travel, and is the furthest away from the desert, the Thar Desert, and therefore is expected to have a more pleasantful climatic conditions, and coupled with there's quite surrounded by many lakes, and therefore Udaipur is being regarded as one of the beautiful cities in the state of Rajasthan. Okay, let's look at the image of this Udaipur right at this city palace. Right in front of the image is the lakes. Let's share with you about the Udaipur. Udaipur is a city in the southernmost regions of Rajasthan, and is about 600 meters above sea level. The city named after the Mewar rulers, the Maharana Uday Singh II, and it was the historical capital of Mewar kingdoms in nearly 400 years. Now, Udaipur being regarded as a city of lakes for a very simple reason. They are surrounded quite a number of lakes, and of course it's become one of the most scenic spots or most scenic city in the state of Rajasthan, as I did mention just now. Now look at the image itself is taken from the other side of the lakes, right over the so-called city palace complex. Now, city palace is basically a complex in the city of Udaipur of Rajasthan, built by ruler Mewar dynasty. Okay, for this reason, it's almost known as the Mewar Palace. Some people like to call it Mewar Palace. It has been considered as the largest palace complex in Rajasthan, and considering with the length of 244 meter, by 30.4 meter, and with the height that was built, right? And to a point whereby you look at from the picture itself, it is very tall and above ground. Now, another thing that we have to take note is that the foundations was actually laid by Maharana Uday Singh II, and that's the reason why this town is named after him, named after the rulers. Now, between the 400 years of construction and expansions, they mean that this palace, the construction continued for a period of time. The palace complex exhibit many forms of architectural style, such as Rajasthani, Mughal, medieval, European, and Oriental. That means that you can see that over these 400 years, there are many influences, architectural style influences have affect the architectural construction style in this building complex or this palace complex. Now, let's see more of these images before I go on to more detail of the palace. Now, this is as you go closer to this city palace, and you can see that it looks like it's a 5-6 story high type of palace buildings, but inside itself they actually house many smaller palace, right? Because it's actually it's a cluster of palaces that form this city palace complex. Now, there are many palaces. I mentioned that they are all interconnected, and as you touring this itself, you realize that you are going to cut through, passing through many zigzag corridors, and all these corridors that zigzag in design, in size, and so on, is with the aim, right, of confusing the enemy in the event of surprise attack. So you can get lost, but of course all these palace that's turned museum, they all have been guided. They have a guided path, and normally a tour guide will bring you through, so you are unlikely to get lost in this palace complex. So you can see the facade. In this case, this facade over here is very much not the same, very much different from the earlier palaces and fort that I've shown you. The earlier 3 palaces that I've just shown you recently are very similar in the architecture style, and this is a bit different from the other 3. Just look at some of these external facade as you go along. Even though it's slightly different from that, but the thing that is not completely different, you still see that the popular cantilever balcony, and with the decoration right below the balcony, it seems to be characteristics of the palaces in this region in the state of Rajasthan. This facade, of course, is of different of its kind compared with the earlier all the fort and palaces that I've shown in my earlier series. And the domes is somehow or other start coming in. Very seldom we have seen this type of dome-shaped ceiling or roof, and it's where in city palace itself we found that it's become more prominent. Now, therefore, for your info, actually, altogether there are quite, I think, 5 palaces at least. But I was told that actually 2 of the palaces have been converted to the hotels. There is Fatah Prakis and Sifnwas Palace. These 2 palaces actually now a hotel, a 5-star hotel, and then the other actually turned into a museum. Now, for those portions that turn to the museum, it actually comprises of Raya Engan or called royal courtyards, Krishna Villas, Bada Maha, Mochok, Sri Maha, Zanana Maha, and a central courtyard we call Lakshmi Chok. And of course, the key features of this palace structure are beautifully landscaped garden. All those gardens that's within the palace, they actually place a lot of emphasis on landscaping. It's slightly different from the other palaces that we see. The courtyard basically just a plain or flat ground. And also the other uniqueness of this is that they have a lot of massive craft pillar and terraces you can find between this palace complex. And also the breathtaking balcony, attractive fountains, and as well royal chamber. So one thing that makes these palaces or this complexes outstanding from the others four is in terms of the royal chambers. Right? They mean that there are so many rooms, that the royal rooms that actually are very well decorated. And in fact, if you are able to giving a rating, this forts or palace complex is number one, and that's why I'm cover on the last. So let's go on with some of this picture first, and before you go on to some of the interior decorations, the finishes of these palaces. And this is one of the gate that we enter the palace. Actually, there are few entry points to this palace complex, and we have actually entered through this gate, and then exit from another gate that lead to the old city center of the town that we are actually in, Udaipur. Now this is another exit point. This is an exit point when I mentioned just now. Just now enter from the earlier entry point. This is the another entry point, but we exit from here, and this is actually leading straight to the old city center of Udaipur. These are some of decorations along the way. And one of the palaces, they still stay with the royal families, and you can see the king guards on horseback. With some of these decoration and sign or logo. They very much favor the sun god. And it's one of the entrance gates, a huge gate. In fact, this is the gate that it is the second gate that we are entering, but it's one of the most grand gates. There's some of the sign that placed right above the palace entrance. More of those palace gates. All are well decorated differently. And this is where I say that these palaces have one of the uniqueness is that they have a very well landscaped courtyard or gardens, and all this courtyard they have fountains, right, and also been well landscaped. And from this picture you can see the aging of this city palace is real close to 400 years old. And these are the very intricate pillar at one of the courtyard, and it can regard one of the most beautiful courtyards. A closer view of the decorations on the pillar, or you call it columns, and the column capitals as well. Here the cantilever balcony And they exhibit two different styles. You see that the one in larger image compared with the one at the further away, the smaller images are not exactly the same. More views of the facades, the round domes, as we move along from palace to palace, so we will then come to able to see some more interesting thing in this palace. And one of the main attraction in this palace is actually the, we call it the so-called what I can say is actually the showcase the range of artillery and king horse chetek. I mean, there's a museum sections. The other important thing is actually their dedicated mirrors and mosaic works. In fact, the marble works, the mural works, the wall painting, the silver works, and also many other inlay work, and which include the art that come from Mount Yu, forming the beautiful rooms they have decorated with multicolored glass panel. And the multi-glass panel is actually one of the very rare in India. Now another not to miss section is actually the Mall Chop, or called the Royal Courtyard, or commonly referred as a Peacock Courtyard. I will share with you later on where is the Peacock Courtyard, because that is actually the highlight of entire visit to this city palace. But let's look at this building's design on the image. You can see that is quite a difference from the earlier palaces or forts. In fact, in this area, I managed to catch quite a fair bit of a close shot. Thank God, unlike the earlier episode, I missed out. And I also have attempted to take the exterior scenes from the window opening and oversee the big courtyard below, and also oversee the lakes. In fact, these city palaces are actually fronting lakes, right? And if not mistaken, the lake is called Pichola, called Lake Pichola. Here you come the one of the popular and the most famous, we call them the Peacock Courtyard. Is this shown in this image now? Here is actually the most interesting part. Now we look at it itself. This is actually now we are in a Mall Chop, or called Royal Courtyard. It's exactly where we are now looking at it. And you can look at the first floor. This is actually the balcony. And there some people like to refer as a peacock balcony because they have a lot of peacock painting. And I will share with you later on in more detail why it's so unique, and because of they're using mosaic works to create the art. Let's look at a general view first. Do you see that the detail of it? On both sides of the balcony, both left and right. I take away the center balcony and put it on both sides, to show that the more closer view of the design of the window area. Here exactly you see now on the right, there's a peacock art pictures, and this peacock picture is constructed strictly using of mosaic tiles, and it's not two-dimensional, it's three-dimensional. And this is actually to make these palaces, these complexes so popular among the tourists. most people will come, they will not miss this peacock courtyard. They call it peacock courtyard because of this piece of peacock art constructed using mosaic tiles. And from this spot, you can always see the Udaipur town. And below you can see is another courtyard, but this courtyard is where just now we enter from, and is where actually one of the palace has turned into a hotel, and therefore that is basically a place for eatery owned by the hotel operators. And this is an image taken right above this city complex. Palace complex oversee the city. And this here become the interior. As I mentioned earlier, of all the 5 series, this is the last series of my travelogues to Fort and Palace of Rajasthan. And in fact, the most interesting part, as far as I'm concerned, besides just now the peacock balcony, is actually all the interior, the individual royal chambers that was actually decorated uniquely differently from one another. There are so many variety of design. I will share with you as we go along with the images. This is the place where the queens are staying, the lady area. These are some of the interior decorations and furnitures they used during that era. Here come all the so-called royal chamber. In this chamber is literally like a goldish chamber. Mirror, you can see the color glass, the decoration on these 2 pictures or 2 images. This is another room. Again, the different design. You see all the last few, none of them is the same, and all very distinctively different from the others. This is just to showcase the window works. You know, on one side is a stained glass or color glass. On the other end is actually just straight metal grills, and then on the center part itself, there's some form of wooden carvings, the forming various design patterns. As for door, likewise the design is so different. A square door, a door with a dome-shaped arch top. Even as far as those door ironmongery, the door knocks, you can realize that actually they show quite differently from one to the others. And of course there are also some pictures of the kings or the rajas being displayed in this museum palace. And the king been very popular, and it been considered as a hero. And in one of instances, there is that the king was saved by this horse, king horse, the white horse that you see in this picture. During a war, the life of a king was saved by the horse, and therefore this king horse, they're given a name, Cheta, right? And you can see on the picture on the left is actually a painted image showing the king killing his enemy with a very sharp saw, and the whole saw just cut the enemy literally into half. This is one of the pictures I've shown. This is show that how powerful, how strong is this king that's unmatchable in war. And even in the palace complex itself, you still can find that they still have a place where they keep a horse, because these horse are still being used and ride by the royal family who are still staying in one of the palace within the palace complex. And this is some of the seat that use wheelless seat carried by people that or some of them are actually placed on animal or elephants. They also have a lot of artifacts. For example, like this silverware belong to the Raja. This is some of the collections. Most of it is either silver or gold. And some of the antiques or artifacts. This is some of the collection there, exhibits. And in one certain section, you also show that the kitchenware they used during that time. Old safe, an old big copper container for the storage of drinking waters. Images on the walls and also on the on the windows. And India, some or other, you can't run away from Indian gods, elephant gods. So these are a picture of the elephant gods that you can find on the wall. And this is the sun god. It's also one of the gods that are followed by the most Hindu. These are the displays. The servants are serving the sun gods. More ornaments and sculptures you can find around the complex. And this is where exactly we look at the lakes, right? And the lakes I mentioned here is called Pichola Lakes. And right at the middle of Pichola Lake, there is another palace. And this palace has now turned into hotels. The original name of this is called Tar Lakes Palace, but actually now it's a hotels. This is just a closer view of this palace hotel. You can only access to this palace hotel by boats that's provided by this hotel operator. And we during our travel, we are giving some time after we visited the palace. We are not only waiting for the sunset scene to be taken around this area, because it's facing the west, so we are expected to see a sunset scene. At the same time, we also walk to the Udaipur city center, the old district area, and we can find many iconic historical buildings. And at the same time, we also have a chance to take a picture from far of this city palace. I will share with you some of these images taken while we are touring the old Udaipur city. This is actually when we are on the other side of the Lake Pichola. Some of the views before we're crossing over to the other side of the lakes. Because of the presence of quite a number of lakes, the climates of the weather here is very much mild or neutralized by the lake waters, you know. So during summer and during the winter months, that these places are more comfortable, you know, compared with other places in Rajasthan. And in fact, a lot of local have coming to here to have their holidays by virtue of the to avoid the extreme climates that may appear found in many places in Rajasthan. This is the sunset scene. We are actually stood right at the city palace, looking toward the Pichola lakes, and exactly the west is right in front of us. This is some of the setting sun evening view. Here, the last bit of the setting sun. In fact, the scenery here is very, very beautiful in the evening, and we also been blessed because we have a good weather while we are visiting this city palace. So this is my travelogues of my last series or last episode of my journey to Rajasthan. Of course, there are also other places of interest of India I have visited during my visit to Rajasthan, but I found some other time to share with you. And just a bit intro, in the coming years, in the year 2021, I'm going to share with you a new nation. The nation is called China. But as I say, China is just a big country whereby there are so many provinces, and each province is so huge and large. There are so many places of interest that you not possible complete the coverage of whole China. It may take years to cover. But I selectively, although I've been visited many provinces in mainland China, I have actually picked this province as my first introduction to China, Xinjiang. Xinjiang is the largest province in China, and it's also a province that have a lot of unique landscapes, and also the unique religions that practiced by the locals. The Uyghur tribe, we call them ethnic groups, a small minor ethnic group, Islamic Muslim people who stay in China. And as far as concerned that we are covering in this coming year, the next month will take up, I believe, will be 6 episodes to cover not only on the traditional custom of the people in this area, this place of China, but also will cover quite a fair bit of landscape, beautiful landscape of southern Xinjiang of China. So please stay tuned. By the turn of the year itself, a new nation, China, Xinjiang, will be in my next travelogues. And thank you very much for staying until this hour of the day, and bye. See you in the next episode. And thank you again for supporting me